Obviously, Para's numbers are absolutely remarkable. She is top 5 in the nation in points per set and kills per set. But Nolan mentioned she's heating up. At least 20 kills in 2 out of the last 3 matches, including a 20-piece last game against Baylor and 22, a career high, against BYU last week. It is senior day for Cincinnati as well, and fittingly, senior Julie Whittakin will serve first for Cincinnati. Reaching on the freshman Evan Hendrickson to get this game started, and right on cue going to Para, but it's sent back by Legia Williams, who's been on one heck of a run as a blocker lately, 10 in the last match against Baylor.
So this is probably Cincinnati's best blocking situation against Melanie Para, having a 6'4" opposite and Legia Williams in the middle. That's tough to get by.
Going to the far side now for Gibson. Good lunge from Leffler to keep it alive. Stewart off the block. There's Para. Back row attack and Hendricks. Too long, no touch. 2-0 Cincinnati in the early going.
Yeah, TCU trying to keep their back row involved in this offense. That just adds an extra dimension to an already powerful TCU attack.
Lily Nicholson is the setter. The tip shot to Sylvester, and that works. They're trying to get her more involved. We were talking with head coach Jason Williams before the game, a very pin-heavy team. And you're going to be when you have maybe one of the best players in the nation, right, with Melanie Para, but they want to get Sylvester more involved out of the middle.
Sylvester is such an efficient attacker as well, but like you said, because TCU is so pin heavy, they're trying to get her involved, but at what expense?
It's one of the keys down the stretch for Jason Williams, getting the middles more involved, especially come tournament play. Williams smacks it home out of the middle.
And that's exactly what Cincinnati needs. Get their middles engaged in this match early on.
Cincinnati on the other side, led by Molly Alvey. Her 13th season with the Bearcats. Back set, and Gibson again flying in. Good punch up by Whittakin. Stewart is denied. That is Alexis Roberson, the LSU transfer, picking up the block there. Mentioned Molly Alvey a moment ago. There she is. Reached 200 wins at Cincinnati earlier this season. Trying to end the season on a high note for the Bearcats. Felt that it was 2 beatable teams this week. Last year, Cincinnati played very well against TCU. They took a set off them on the road earlier this year, down in Fort Worth. Back row attack for the freshman Evan Hendricks, who's started to shine in her freshman season.
Yeah, TCU is going to what Coach Williams called a 5-2. So a setter, Lily Nicholson, will set across the back. And then when Stephanie Young gets to the front row, she will set across the front row. She's been out injured, so they're trying to get her back involved in this TCU lineup.
Good dig by Frame, denying Para once again. Lazda, the tap, works out.
Little miscommunication there for TCU. Melanie Para had reached back behind her thinking that tip was going to fall, but Alice was right behind her ready to dig that ball.
Gretchen Sigmund at the service line. Overpass by Volpe. TCU keeps it alive a couple of times. Long set for Stewart. Punched up again. Nicely done by Gibson in the back row. And how about that point? Jalen Gibson, a very good defensive player, and leads to the point for TCU.
That was such a great dig by Gibson. Tooling off the block. Some of the most difficult balls to dig. That was a great job by her.
And it was Young that capped it off. Stephanie Young, you mentioned it, Melissa. She was out for a very long period of time. She was just cleared about 3 weeks ago. That's why Jason Williams told us she's just starting to get some extended play now. On the slide, Abby Walker nails it home.
Yeah, Abby Walker does such a tremendous job hitting that 1-foot takeoff slide behind the setter, especially when she's chasing that ball down. It's a tremendous job. Very hard set to block.
Volpe takes charge that time. Para from the back. They try to get her going. Cincinnati has done well so far. TCU not shy about running their offense from the back. Para the good dive. Gibson again. There's Sigmund, and over and out of bounds. So Gibson, a couple of good points in a row. First the good defensive play, and now flying in from the back for the kill.
This is where I think TCU has the upper hand, are the back row attack options that they have. All of their pin hitters are available in the back row.
Volpe the serve, comes from a volleyball family. Her mother is the head coach at Rice. There's the dive, but it's off the hands of Gibson.
Tough play by Cindy Nolan coming that was coming from over her back. She wasn't able to see any block, any net in front of her, but did a good job saving that ball for a kill.
That serve into the net, tied at 6 in the early part of set 1. So, Melissa, earlier you mentioned TCU with that 5-2. Now that Stephanie Young is back, obviously Lily Nicholson has been the main setter, and Stephanie was just talking about the back row attacks. As a setter, when you're in that 5-2, how does that expand your options as a setter from where to go?
Well, one setter is usually maybe a little bit smaller, like in this case. So she was set from the back row. You put the bigger setter in the front row that has a better block, but it just opens up so many offensive options. And that front row setter also could probably be a pretty good attacker and, attack balls herself when she's in the front row.
Another kill for Nolan a moment ago. Her second. Nicholson back in for Gibson here. Back up for Gibson again. Leffler to Lazda. That's blocked. Sarah Sylvester, one of the best in the country, got her hands on that.
Yeah, really good middle blocker. You will not see her actively involved in the offense, but defensively, her block, she is one of the best blockers in the conference.
She's only a junior, but she's already top 10 in program history in career blocks. More than one a set every year.
Ooh, that was a great swing by Nolan. Great out-of-system set by Leffler, really pushing that ball long.
And Para's a very good defensive player as well. She gets a lot of accolades for the offense, of course, but nothing she could have done with that swing from Nolan, who has a match-high 3 kills. Gibson. Leffler's there. Fallon Stewart tipped over and worked out well.
Yeah, Fallon Stewart coming off a very nice match against Baylor. Good job. That set was pushed a little bit inside, but she saw that opening just over the block for that kill.
Stephanie, as an attacker, when you have such a good block, such as Sylvester, do you expect more tips for Cincinnati today, or are you going to try to attack that block with a hard swing?
It kind of depends on the player. Just because there is a good blocker, you don't want to completely go away from them. Their hands are up there. They're vulnerable to be used. But I think the best choice is to go and use the pin blocker's hands, use out of bounds, throw in some off speed, really test that block.
Overpass on the serve. Para rips it home. Her first kill. They've tried to get her going. And maybe that'll open the floodgates a bit for Melanie Para.
Yeah, again, that overpass. Caitlin Leffler is coming from the back row. So she tried to attempt to go up and jump set that ball, but she cannot touch it and send it over the net on that second attack because she's back row.
Leffler feeds the middle. A shoulder for Gibson. Tried to shrug it over there. Williams picks up another kill.
You can tell that Cincinnati has been working on the connection between Leffler and Legia Williams at practice. Because then earlier in the season, when Legia Williams would enter the court, she wouldn't get set as much. But from what we've seen the past 2 matches, she's really getting up there with attempts.
Williams, such a bouncy player. I imagine it's tough to time the sets every now and then with a player that can jump so high, has such a quick arm swing. Doing better lately. Nicholson to the middle, and Gibson gets her revenge.
Yeah, nice job. Past that first touch is so important, and that allows you to run anything you want when you're in system. So Gibson came around. The setter hit a 2-tempo ball, in front of the setter. Cincinnati was not ready for that one.
To the middle, Walker, a very rare non-slide for Walker from the middle. Lazda has to set the feet, uses the outside of the hand. Para. Got a touch and a kill for Melanie Para.
Just such a smart player. You know, it looked like that. You know, she was a little off balance, but such a smart player. She was able to find high hands of Cincinnati's block.
Third team All-American last year, in line to be a very good option for an All-American conference or an All-American selection again. Lazda got a touch there.
Yeah, it's not good to see Irbe Lazda getting involved in this offense. She wasn't as actively involved in the offense Wednesday against Baylor. Cincinnati needs to try to find a way to keep her in system and more attacks today.
Yeah, Lazda just 3 kills coming on after starting the season hurt. Didn't play until October. Another back row attack for Gibson. Just a luxury of riches, Stephanie, isn't it, for TCU? Para hasn't quite got it going yet. That past few points she's gotten active, but players like Gibson, we haven't even seen Becca Kelly yet. Of course, they got Sylvester every now and then out of the middle. Just so many options.
So many options, and at all areas of the court, front row, back row, and that's something that Cincinnati doesn't see at practice because there isn't a player that plays front row and back row and utilizes that back row attack.
We talked about Para's offense, a little bit about her defense. She's one heck of a server, too. That's her 50th ace of the season.
Yeah, that top spin jump serve is lethal. And if you don't have anybody in practice that could do that, it's very hard to pass.
Frame got all she could handle there, kept it alive. Now up for Hendricks. Frame takes care of that as well. Walker denied at first. Volpe keeps it up. Middle, Roberson. Whittakin is there. Stewart running start. And we'll get the point for Cincinnati. Fallon Stewart, after a couple of tries early, gets a kill.
Yeah, Cincinnati's offense is really coming along. They're really trying to run a quicker offense, especially to the outside, not the high set to the pins, and it's really providing some seams for Cincinnati's attackers to hit.
Float serve for Lily Gillespie, and it throws TCU off. That's not going to make its way over. Volpe and Hendricks both went for it. And you have to imagine over time that communication will start to develop. That's 2 freshmen in the serve-receive pattern there.
Yeah, it takes time to evolve. You're right. They're 2 freshmen. And Hendricks, who has not been playing 100% of the time, and also Volpe, started the season as a defensive specialist, moved into the libero role, and that's just, you know, it just takes time to evolve.
Another kill for Nolan, match leading 4th. Cincinnati by 1.
Nolan's going to be the player to watch in the Big 12. She's only a sophomore, but she has really grown throughout the season, and the outside position is what she looks the most natural in, and she's really blossoming as an outside attacker.
Especially considering her background as a middle. Hendricks, another kill for TCU. Next point will send us to a timeout here in Cincinnati. And it'll be TCU's. Hendricks and Sylvester combined for the block. It's been a great start for Jalen Gibson in this match today, coming in 9th in the Big 12 in kills per set. All-conference first-team selection. Second-team selection last year, I beg your pardon, and a preseason selection this year. She had a 2020 match earlier this year against Minnesota, so certainly capable defensively as well. And Stephanie, we mentioned earlier, just the luxury of riches. Para has been a bit quiet so far. They've been feeding Gibson in her place, and she's shouldering the load.
Gibson's a great player, and I think it says a lot when you're having such breakout performances against top teams in the country.
She must chew gum whenever she plays, and Stephanie, we were laughing about that earlier. You know some players that have some superstitions like that.
That is a thing. Gum chewing while they play, that's a total thing, and I've played with players in college and overseas that have had that. And in college at UC, we had a rule that there was no gum chewing whatsoever. But my college roommate, Julie Gunther, she hit gum every day for 4 years. Never got caught.
Well, Cincinnati always feeds Nolan, it seems, out of the timeouts. They go to her again there and get the kill to tie it at 15. Imagine the player you could have been if you were allowed to chew gum.
Oh, I'm not a gum chewer.
Turned out to be an okay player yourself, All-American, played overseas. Nolan again, Volpe denies her. Back row, Para rips it and kept it in down the line.
Yeah, Par, just such the complete player. You know, if you need a side out, and even if she's in the back row, you know she's going to rip it and put a ball away.
We talked to Jason Williams before the match today, and we said, obviously, you can go on and on about Par, but what stands out most to you? And we've talked about her offense, we've talked about her defense, we've talked about the serving, and that's exactly what Jason Williams told us. He said, she is a model for every skill set. Doesn't matter what. We use her as a model to show how to do things at TCU. Frame a couple of good digs. That one's going to land out of play.
The other thing about Para, when you watch her play, she's not a vocal leader by any means. She's very quiet. She doesn't say a whole lot when she's playing, but it's all in her actions. She leads by example on the court.
Timeout, Cincinnati. TCU's gone on a bit of a run here, leading it by 2, 17-15. Melanie Para, I mean, we could go on and on. Last match against West Virginia, she recorded a double-double, 17 kills, 11 digs. And with the 17 kills, she became the first player at TCU with more than 500 kills in a season since 2004 and set the TCU rally scoring era record in total season kills. She's also broken her own record for points in a season in back-to-back years. And this is for a player, guys. She started her career at Texas, but she was, I don't want to say a non-factor, but she was buried on the depth chart. And she has really broken out at TCU.
But that's why I believe what makes her so good, because Coach Williams was talking about, even though she did not play very much in matches at Texas, she got that elite training there in Austin, and that has made her a better player.
Last year she was dealing with some back issues, and Jason Williams told us when she was asked to shoulder a big load, which she has the last 2 years, but when asked to take over in a match and be in those pressure situations, she struggled a little bit because she wasn't physically where she wanted to be. But now that the back issues have gone away, she's feeling herself, and she feels that she can handle pressure better this season because there are no physical ailments.
And that comes also with being a senior. She is the senior on the court that they expect the most out of, and she delivers.
Yeah, if they expect to, hopefully advance in the NCAA tournament, she definitely is going to have to step it up at each match that they play.
Coming out of the Cincinnati timeout, right on cue, they go to Nolan, but Sylvester was ready for it. That is the bread and butter, Stephanie, for Cincinnati out of timeouts with a good pass. They're going to go to Nolan, and Sarah Sylvester was just ready for it.
That's a pretty solid block for TCU. Gibson and Sylvester up on Nolan. That's one of those situations you got to use those hands.
Going to Nolan again. That's popped up. Hendricks taps it. Punched off the net and down. Sylvester tried to get it over. She could not.
Nice job by Legia Williams staying with that ball, and she just jumped so high and seems to hang forever, especially on that one. She was able to block it back into TCU side.
It's kind of what we were talking about earlier, Melissa, that timing, right? I imagine that's difficult with a player that can just hang up there. That timing must be difficult to get down.
Yeah, it really is, because she can jump so high. So it's almost like, if you're playing co-ed volleyball, a male is going to jump so different than a female. And it's, as a setter, it's hard to get the ball where each individual player wants it. And it seems really that they've been working really, really hard, because Caitlin Leffler and Legia Williams are connecting much better in the last couple matches.
3-point lead TCU nearing the end of set one. And it's a really good serve and an ace for Evan Hendricks, the freshman out of Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah, serving that seam. A lot of teams take advantage of that outside hitter who is front row and back in the serve receive pattern. She served that seam in between Sydney Nolan and Lily Gillespie. Took advantage of that.
Second ace for the Horned Frogs today. One for Para, one for Hendricks. And Cincinnati calls its final timeout of the first set. Now TCU, very good serving team, usually led by Para in that regard, considering she is first in the Big 12 in aces per set, and they have players littered all over the top 10 in the Big 12. Para, of course, leading the Big 12 in kills. Nicholson, with all those luxury of riches, I imagine that's a good feeling for a setter. She's second in the Big 12 in assists per set, and Sylvester second in blocks per set. Gibson top 10 in kills as well. And we were talking before the match, guys, you know, TCU with all of this, with such a stud in Para, how do they lose? And it's sometimes just with the ball control, you sometimes get a really good defensive team on the other side that passes and keeps TCU out of system. That's sometimes where they can fall into their difficulties. But overall, from top to bottom, a very good team otherwise.
A very good team, and every team has their bad days. I think the top 5 teams in the country have significantly less, but every team is bound to hit a little bit of slump throughout the year. But at the end of the season, this is where you want to peak. This is not where you want to drop sets to teams that you should be sweeping.
TCU hit a bit of a snag. Middle of conference play, they had a stomach bug go through the team. They only had 2 healthy players on the road in Utah. Wiped out 22 of the 26 members of the travel party. They've recovered since then. Popped up off the block, hangs around the net, still alive and punched over. Lazda the tip. Good dive by Volpe. But it ended up out of bounds.
Lazda looks like she's really trying to get involved in this match. She's calling for the set. After a rough match against Baylor, it's nice to see her again getting involved. She just had her second kill this first set.
Good serve by Whittakin. Para sets the feet. That is such a difficult shot, and she makes it look so easy.
We talk about intelligence on the court, and she has it. She knows what's open, and you could see when she was in midair. She turned her wrist and cut it back to that zone 4, 4-4, one of the most difficult balls to defend.
Well, she's a senior. Her career at TCU will be coming to an end, but she'll be playing for a long time, whether it's overseas or on the national team with Mexico. She's been playing with the Mexican national team since 2018. Lazda rips it. Popped up by Nicholson. Nicely done. Para streaks in, and she's denied. Another one for Williams. Lazda there as well.
Nice job by Lazda. That set was falling inside. She moved. Her job is to set the block. Middle blocker is in charge of closing. Great job sealing off that net and stop blocking Para.
Williams 5th in the Big 12 in blocks per set. A couple of really good blockers today with Sylvester for Cincinnati and Williams for, Sylvester for TCU and Williams for Cincinnati. That is long, but a touch called there for Fallon Stewart.
And you can just see Para. When you watch her, she took her eye. She knew she was getting a set. She took her eye off the ball for just a split second to look at the other side of the net, to see where the blockers were and to see where those defensive players were set up.
Molly Harrison serving for Cincinnati, and it's a good one. An ace on senior day for Molly Harrison.
That was such a great serve. It barely clipped the top of the net, right in the seams.
That must be a feel-good moment there for a player this season that's mostly been a serving specialist. Earlier in her career was more active in a defensive specialist type role. But a nice moment there for Molly Harrison, and it's a big moment. Gets Cincinnati back within 1 and forces TCU to use a timeout.
So Cincinnati utilizing that double libero jersey. Not a jersey that Harrison usually sports, but today it has come in handy.
Well, Harrison, one of a handful of seniors that are honored today on Senior Day. That'll be a post-match celebration. But Harrison, along with Walker, who's maybe the headliner of this senior class. She is one of the four-year players along with Harrison. Lazda spent just 1 year with the program. Whittakin battled injuries early, but has really been a key piece of the defense this year as one of the DSs. Leffler spent a couple of years at Illinois State, but has emerged as the top setter the last couple of years. Melissa, you followed this class for a while, and it turned out to be a very successful and very strong senior class. Of course, Walker being drafted, maybe the headliner there, but a very good senior class for the Bearcats.
Yeah, very strong senior class. Very, 5 very good team leaders. Abby Walker, the minute she stepped foot on campus, she's been a starter for Coach Alvey, and Caitlin Leffler's done a great job of coming in, as a transfer and building that leadership and that trust in her players.
And keep in mind, this is a senior class that helped transition Cincinnati from the American Athletic Conference to the Big 12. There was certainly some growing pains there, and they have helped with that transition. And now on the serve from Harrison, Cincinnati back to even. Chance to take the lead here for the Bearcats. See if TCU can side out. They want to go to par. It wasn't a great in-system ball. Stewart down the line. And Cincinnati has crawled its way back.
Kudos to Molly Harrison. She's kept her serving run since the timeout and been delivering aggressive serves.
Volpe takes charge to the middle. Roberson. Harrison digs it, and it's long for Roberson. So Harrison doing a bit of everything here.
You love that for her on Senior Day. Such a momentous dig right there, an overpass, but she is doing her job.
And this is exactly what we were talking about earlier for TCU. So many options, but the serve for Cincinnati's been good from Harrison. The passing for TCU has not been. So if you have all the options, it doesn't matter if you can't get them up to the attackers.
Yeah, and it all comes back to that serve and pass game. Every coach's call we do, it is all about that serve and pass game. You must be aggressive from the service line to take your opponent out of system. But TCU right now needs to go back to basics. They need to get the ball up to their setter to be able to run. They have 3 attackers in the front row right now with a back row setter. They just need that first pass to be on point, allow them to run their system.
Well, for Cincinnati, they try to put a stamp on their season here today. Hasn't been the season that they had hoped for coming in at 5-12 in Big 12 play, but they started the season really well. 9 non-conference wins. Their most non-conference wins since 2018. Hit a bit of a slide in the beginning of Big 12 play, but Faith Frame has been a constant. 4-time Big 12 Rookie of the Week. And the headlining win was at BYU last week in 5 sets. That snapped a 16-match losing streak against ranked teams. Trying for another one today against TCU. That 5-match Big 12 losing streak is what I alluded to a moment ago. If Cincinnati could have a stretch back, I'm sure that would be it. Beginning part of conference play. But hitting their stride down the stretch. Harrison's been on one heck of a run here. TCU still trying to side out. They won't there with Gibson. Far set to Stewart. It's blocked. So Gibson didn't get the swing she wanted. Made up for it on the block.
Yeah, Gibson, very nice job. That set was a little bit tight. Fallon Stewart didn't have really an opportunity to do much, but nice job by TCU's block of sealing off that net for that step block.
Whittakin takes charge. Up for Stewart. Tap to the middle. That was down. Well, they'll play on for a moment here, and it's ripped long anyway. So whether it was the pancake or whether it was long, it goes for Cincinnati point anyway. Cincinnati on a 6-1 scoring run. Tough one right at the net, the joust. Sigmund has to send the free ball over. Para rips it through the block, keeps TCU alive.
I think we all knew where that ball was going. Your back's against the wall. That set is going to Player of the Year candidate and big-time favorite, Melanie Para.
And it puts her on the serve as well with that devastating topspin serve. She'll try to keep Cincinnati out of system and get a free ball. She'll float it.
No.
Going into the bag of tricks, surprising everybody for the ace.
Unbelievable.
She pulled the string on that one, didn't she?
And that's what makes Melanie Parr. She just has so many things that she can do with the ball, whether it's attacking from the front row, back row, and she just has such a lethal serve.
Well, she cut that one into the net. So similar situation, Stephanie. I would have to imagine, although Parr in the back row right now, is that still an option for TCU to try to side out here?
Definitely an option, but TCU just has so many weapons. On a good pass, they could set absolutely anybody.
No, and it may be an option right now because their setter is front row, Stephanie Young. So she only has 2 offensive options in the front row with her right now. That Melanie Parr sure is an option from the back row.
Well, it's a moot point with that serve going into the net. Here's Volpe. Deep float is out. 3 consecutive errors at the service line combined. Hendricks. Back row, they tried for Gibson. Nolan blocked, kept alive. Still a chance on the net for Nolan. It's set down. Sylvester right there.
That was a great out-of-system set, but a very tough angle if you're Nolan. That ball coming from behind your back.
The 4th block of this first set for Sylvester. Going to Nolan again. Para waits for it. TCU a chance for the lead. Hendricks off the block and down. Either side wanting to give any ground. And TCU now with set point.
Such a smart swing by Hendricks, and she's a true freshman. She didn't try to overpower the block.
Cincinnati couldn't hold on. Look at this. Tapped over by Gibson to end it. It's a misfortune there for Cincinnati. TCU holds on in set 1.
Near the top.
Yeah.
A lot of very, very tall athletes, but you see a little bit more of a mix here between TCU and Cincinnati. Say, especially with Hendricks just being 5'9", playing the outside position, but she soars and hits at a level that a 6'4" attacker could hit at.
Well, even Parra, you see you there, 5'11" on paper. So not the most imposing outsides. Gibson at 6'2", certainly provides some of that physicality. Kelly, who we've not seen, she's 6'3". But Hendricks 5'9". Certainly some variation in physicality, and that's something Jason Williams talked about as well, that he wants them to be more physical at the net. Cecily Bramschreiber is in to serve to open up the second set. TCU up 1-0, and they start off the second set well with yet another block, the 7th for the Horned Frogs. Cecily Bramschreiber at the service line. She spent some time in her career as an outside as well. Has been mostly a DS the last couple of years. Off the block for Stewart. There is Bramschreiber. Over to Parra on the long set. Frame denied the 4-4 shot. Feet set for Gibson. Leffler filled the spot. Now to Stewart, denied again. Back-to-back blocks for TCU to open up set 2.
TCU is just so solid. Their ball control right now, some of their defensive players back there, and they're just so solid. They get a touch on a lot of balls.
Sylvester should get a solo for that. Off the net for Lust. How about this? 3 blocks in a row for TCU, and Sarah Sylvester has had her fingerprints on all of them.
And we've talked in the past about covering behind your hitter. Cincinnati needs to do a better job of coming up closer to their attacker. Obviously, TCU is a very good blocking team with 19 blocks already. And Cincinnati on their side, they're just standing up. They need to move closer to the attacker and get low because that ball is going to come down fast off the block.
Molly Alvey needing a change, just brought in Gretchen Sigmund for Irbe Lazda on the outside. And they go right to Sigmund. Volpe punches it up. More good ball control. Gibson. Whittakin down to her knees to stop it. The matrix for TCU. Lily Nicholson ducked out of the way and let the Stewart attack go long. TCU riding the momentum from the dramatic first set victory into set 2. Good run for Cecily Bramschreiber. To the middle, Williams stopped again. Unbelievable for TCU. Of their 5 points, 4 have been stuff blocks. Well, they must have had some stuffing yesterday because they're pulling out all the fixings here in set 2. Another solo for Sylvester. Who else? She did it against Utah State. I beg your pardon, Utah Tech. And she had 13 blocks in a 3-set match last season. Maybe we see another milestone performance today out of Sylvester. Cincinnati finally sides out and gets the serve back. Molly Harrison had the good run down the stretch in set 1 for Cincinnati. We'll try to replicate it here. Back set Gibson, and she's blocked. Taste of the own medicine. Cincinnati giving it back.
Yeah, again, nice job by Fallon Stewart setting the block. Abby Walker closed. They sealed off the net, and Fallon Stewart turned that left hand back into the court to keep that ball in.
Over to Para, running start. Walker the push. Over to Para once again. And that's off of Harrison and out. A rocket for Melanie Para. It stopped Cincinnati's serve, but I want to give Cincinnati credit because we talk about it sometimes. They are very good out of timeouts. They obviously fell behind 5-0, but then to rattle off a couple of points in a row, stop the momentum. I think that's one thing Cincinnati does very well is out of timeouts, they always seem to be well put together.
Yeah, they really utilize that timeout. They come out, they set, a standard. The coaching staff does a great job, and for the most part, yes, they don't allow that run, and they side out on the first play.
Walker takes care of the overpass. Took a good dive at first from Lily Nicholson. See who couldn't control it after that. There's that dive. Walker's second kill today. Para got a touch on it. Wiggin was waiting. Off of Nicholson's shoulder. Up for Para once again. And a little too long. Good job by Frame to let it go.
Say 2 candidates for some big accolades at the end of the season for the Big 12. Para's definitely the favorite for Player of the Year, but Faith Frame, 4-time Freshman Player of the Week, and I'd say she's got a very strong chance of winning that Freshman of the Year.
Off the block and out for Gibson. That certainly has to be in the conversation. You're right. Tied for the most Freshman of the Week accolades in the Big 12 with Avery Scoggins for Arizona. Not anything she could do on that after the block went out. Whittakin maybe could have let that ball go, but indecisive there. It was too close to call, and it's an ace for Jalen Gibson.
That just goes back to tracking the serve. Needs to be communicated a little bit earlier. So you did hear players calling the ball out, but it just came a little bit too late.
Trainer Jenny Zimmerman comes out for Cincinnati. I think Sigmund has a cut on one of her hands. They didn't want to make a substitution, so they'll get Sigmund checked out. That left thumb. How does that affect you, Stephanie? Does it affect you at all?
It shouldn't.
Obviously, me as a setter, that would, affect me a little bit because, I didn't ever, you see a lot of players put tape and stuff all on their fingers, their hands, mostly attackers. But yeah, that would really affect me and bother me.
That just like the mentality. I know it's her left hand, but it's just like kind of got to forget about it.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't make it a factor. It's going to affect your game.
It didn't matter as the serve went out, at least for now. Smacked over. Leffler long set, Nolan. And off the block and out. Stephanie Young couldn't turn the hands back into the court.
Yeah, Nolan doing a nice job on the outside. She's learning. She's getting more and more confident out there. She's tipping some. She's hitting hard. She's using high hands. She's only a sophomore, so her future's very bright.
Future's bright for Parra, too. The past is pretty bright as well. Her 7th to lead everybody. (9-6) TCU in the second set. Lily Gillespie does well on the hard serve from Parra. To the middle, and the first swing of the day for Becca Kelly, who was an outside but kind of got sucked towards the middle there and takes advantage of her first chance.
Yeah, they set a triple block that time on Stephanie Nolan. Becca Kelly came in. They know that Caitlin Leffler is front row, so there is no attacker behind her unless Abby Walker runs that slide, and they set a triple block on Sydney Nolan.
No triple block there. Nolan had a good look at it, couldn't convert. And back to Kelly once again, hitting the cross-court shot. Becca Kelly, first time we've seen her today, coming off a good match against West Virginia. She has tumbled a bit in the second half of the season and trying to get back on track here today. She's coming off a good match against West Virginia in this week for TCU. 11 kills against the Mountaineers, but had a career high against Cincinnati earlier this year, 19 kills against the Bearcats. Helping to lead this run for the Horned Frogs right now.
Cincinnati's offense has to do a better job of converting these swings to kills. Said the serve receive is doing the best they can with Parra's serve, getting that ball high to the middle of the court.
Another tough serve for Parra, keeping Cincinnati out of system. Volpe calls everybody off. Up for Kelly once again. And another kill for Becca Kelly. And the luxury of riches just continue to pull a player like that off the bench to come in and add a spark.
Yeah, such a big physical player. Just a lot different look than Evan Hendricks. Evan Hendricks is, a little smaller physically, but can jump out of the gym. Becca Kelly, big physical player at the net. Hits a hard, heavy ball and just rip that one cross court for the kill.
Kelly started her career at Oregon, 1 year there. Redshirted, did not play, so this is her first action in her college career. Not today, but this season. Her sister, Brianna, played volleyball at Florida and Pittsburgh couple of very good volleyball schools, so certainly some good bloodlines with the Kelly family. You see Hendricks there, and you talked about it, Melissa, just different skill sets. You got Parra that can do a little bit of everything, more physical on the outside from Kelly. Hendricks may grow into that, but just not quite there yet, although she's had a very good freshman season. So you have players that can just do a little of this, little of that, and Parra really ties it all together.
Yeah, and it's probably a matchup type situation for TCU. It depends on once they move on into the postseason and who they're playing, how big of a team they're playing, if they're really big and physical at the net, and it's just a luxury for Coach Williams to have that depth on the bench.
Now TCU, their official ticket is not punched yet, but with a top 16 RPI, they don't have to worry about hearing their name called for the selection show. But elsewhere around the country, some tickets have been punched. All the conference qualifiers. In the Big 12, it is Arizona State. There is no conference tournament in the Big 12, but Arizona State, the regular season champs, they have locked that up, and 33 at-large selections to be named on December 1st. That is in on the serve for Parra. Bottom just fell right out. Stephanie, I hear you just whistling to yourself when Parra's serve goes up. Sounds like you're impressed.
It's tough. It's tough. She's got a hybrid serve. She goes after it like a jump float, but it has a top spin effect after it leaves her hand.
Another good one. Frame dives down to the middle. Walker denied. No, I beg your pardon. It didn't get over the net and fell on TCU's side. So a point for Walker.
Yeah, Parra's just so impressive. She's not this big, flashy player. She just does her job, and she does it very well.
It's a net violation on Roberson. A little tight to the net there.
Say Walker's also a great server in her own right as well. Just reached 100 aces.
Did it in the same match that she eclipsed 1,000 kills in her career. That was on the road in Provo against BYU.
I think two of the best servers that I have seen this season, Parra's one and Babcock at the University of Pittsburgh, has a demanding top spin serve.
Pitt still reigning supreme at number 1. Back row, Parra. And off of Sigmund and out. Her 8th kill. Does her serve, does her game, Stephanie, remind you of anybody in particular that you've seen over your collegiate and professional playing days?
I say she's got a very unique serve, but she's a great player. I can't compare her to anyone that I've seen.
Well, she'll give you a few more opportunities to think about it because they're going to set her a lot. Off the block for Gibson. Frame tracks it down. Another tough set for Nolan. Go to the middle this time with Williams, and it's sent back once again. Sarah Sylvester just always seems to be right place, right time.
Yeah, she's impressive. She has such good vision. And she just watches the setter, Caitlin Leffler, especially when she's front row, follows her attacker, and she's in the right place at the right time.
Nolan, big rip.
That's what Cincinnati needs. That big swing from Nolan high over the block. But when the Bearcats are getting in trouble is when they're bringing that ball down with their attack. Nolan's hitting that ball much higher than the block. That's a difficult ball to defend.
Good serve from Leffler, and it's going to be an ace. Gibson wasn't prepared for that. Cincinnati's 4th ace today. This day in the line for both teams. Gibson does better this time. Back row, Parra, the float, and read that well. Good vision. Dropped it right in front of Faith Frame.
Genius. That is exactly what that shot is.
But as a defensive player, I mean, here from the sideline, you could tell it wasn't the best set, But when she was jumping, her hand was open. You knew she was going to tip that ball. And as a defensive player, you know, you need to take your eye. You're taught to take your eye off the ball and watch your hitter. And that's just something that young Faith Frame will learn as she plays. Faith Frame does such a good job of being right place at the right time. But on that one, you know, I don't know if she couldn't see Parr go up with that open hand.
Nolan got it back for Cincinnati. Still a 7-point TCU advantage. Nicholson back into set and mistimed with Sarah Sylvester. That's some of the polish TCU has to work out with the middles. They want to get them more involved, but they're so pin heavy that every now and then that setter-hitter connection with the middles just isn't there.
Yeah, that set was just way too low, and Sylvester needs to realize that it is low, and she's not going to be able to hit that and just try to tip it over the block to keep it in play.
TCU quickly answers. Sixth kill for Gibson.
All of Gibson's swings right now have been predominantly going cross court.
Sigmund got the feet set. TCU got a touch on it. That's better timed with Sylvester. Cincinnati's defense did well. Gibson runs out of the way of the setter. Back set for Carly Glendenning. Her first swing today, her first swing in 2 matches. She did not play against Baylor, coming on here at the end of the second set today. And time's up with Leffler for the kill.
Yeah, really nice swing by Carly Glendenning. She had a double block up in front of her. She used the block, hit it cross court, and tooled it for her first kill.
It's been an up and down season for Carly Glendenning, who early in the season was red hot. She has 15 matches this season with double-digit kills, including 5 with 20 or more. But in the second half of the season, come conference play, it's been a tough go of things at times for Carly Glendenning. But still 10th in the Big 12 in kills per set, just going to show how good in the season early she was. Gibson flying in, Whittakin punches it up. Frame does the same. Free ball by Glendenning. One-handed set to Parra right down the line. So a one-handed set by Nicholson and a one-handed tap over by Parra for the kill.
Yeah, again, a freshman, Gretchen Sigmund, in there playing defense. And usually Cincinnati's off blocker is in charge of that tip that's over the net. That was really tough for Carly Glendenning to get over there and get that ball.
Tap by Parra again. Frame read that one well. Back to Parra, a little bit behind her. Over to Glendenning. They're feeding her. She'll get another try. And into the back row, a kill for Glendenning.
Yeah, Caitlin Leffler really liked, again, what she's been doing the last couple matches. She's trying to get that ball, even in transition there, she's trying to get that ball out to her pin hitters a little bit faster and not allowing that opponent's block to close.
The one thing we haven't seen from Leffler yet today is her herself getting involved in the offense. She did come alive against Baylor, throwing in a couple kills for herself. And I still think there's time for her to do that today.
Back to Nolan, who's in for Glendenning now. Back row, Gibson. Little roll shot denied by Leffler. Big rip for Nolan, and that's way out. And a good attempt for Volpe to dig it.
Great swing by Nolan. One thing she's going to realize from going from a middle to an outside are her attempts. She's going to be jumping a lot. She's going to be swinging a lot.
Well, she's handling the workload well right now, hitting 280, 9 kills. Feet set for Para. Frame another dig. Walker, cross court. Gibson's waiting for it. Para checks the defense to the back row. Sigmund. Another swing for Nolan. Volpe keeps it alive for Para. There's Leffler throwing it over. Para once again, frame another dig. Joust, Leffler, point TCU. And Leffler stands up and says, why? Thought there may have been a touch involved there.
I think I'm asking the same thing. She went up to try to attack it, but I think it hit off the net. Didn't touch her the first time, and then she put it in play the second time, but I think she missed the first touch.
And Cincinnati will want a look at it. So break this down, Melissa. As a setter, what are you looking for? Obviously, the joust right at the net there. Why does Leffler think this call should go Cincinnati's direction?
She did go up to joust that ball with the TCU middle blocker, and she tried to attack it, but I think she missed it. It hit off the net, and then as Leffler was coming down, then I think that's when the touch happens. Because you can see TCU's middle blocker, Roberson, say, no, I didn't touch it. But I actually think it touched the net and not Leffler the first time. And then on her way down, she touched it. Because the R1, the up official, called double. Oh, maybe she touched it on that view. Kind of hard sometimes to tell live, and then when the replays happen, then it breaks it down a little bit, and it's much easier to see when they slow it down during that replay. That's really tough to see.
It's tough to see, and it's all situational, because if Roberson would have touched it, then it's a joust, but it doesn't look like she touched it. But if it hit Leffler's forearms and then she tried to set it, that would be a double contact. This might be one of those that there might not be enough to overturn it.
They're nearing a decision. And the call will stand with TCU point. Certainly a close play. Also from Cincinnati's perspective, they didn't have any timeouts left in this second set. You have to wonder if Molly Alvey, you hate to sacrifice a challenge, right? But just kind of use that as a de facto timeout.
I think it was a little bit of both. I think she thought there was a chance that it could get overturned, but also not a bad time to use the timeout.
TCU 22, Cincinnati 16. One of those tricky float serves thrown in by Para. Kelly off the block, and Sigmund doing her best. Full extension, couldn't keep it alive.
I really like Kelly. She's a big physical presence at the net. She hits hard. She hits high. Cincinnati's having a really tough time blocking her and defending her.
Yeah, I mean, she's hitting 1,000.
A rocket for Para. Sent it to outer space.
Yeah, that ball had its own stewardess. Thing flew. You're at Cincinnati service team. You're just ducking out of the way.
If you're anywhere in the northern Kentucky area, you're getting out of the way. Nice float there for Cincinnati's side for Walker. Back row, Para. Taken up for the bad serve a moment ago. Set point, Horned Frogs.
Cincinnati set a double block up there. She saw that and ripped it cross court for that kill from the back row.
And she has 11 kills up to this point, and not all of them are in perfect situations.
She can do a lot of everything, cross court, off a block, you name it. Para has it. Sydney Nolan, Melissa, another really good match and just very encouraging down the stretch for a player that's, as Stephanie mentioned earlier, only a sophomore, room to grow as well.
Yeah, only a sophomore, and she has not been playing outside this whole season due to injuries. Coach Alvey had to move her and asked her to play on the right side in the opposite position. And so you can just see her confidence building and building every match she plays on the outside.
She has 9 kills for Cincinnati, a couple of digs as well. TCU hitting 228, and the number that really stands out, 11 blocks for the Horned Frogs. 6 aces as well for TCU. Sylvester has tied her season high with 9 of those blocks. And now the 16th time this season, Sarah Sylvester has had 5 or more blocks in a match. So Cincinnati tries to avoid the sweep today. Put Julie Whittakin on the service line. It's a scrappy team, right? A team that hasn't had the season go their way, but Jason Williams said the teams that are finding ways to win when the numbers suggest they shouldn't, that's a team that scares me, according to Jason Williams.
Right, that's exactly what he said about Cincinnati. He looked at the stats after the BYU game. Baylor, by stat sheet, it doesn't seem that Cincinnati would take that match to 5. But that they have that secret sauce that is getting them there.
And our point being is don't discount the Bearcats even though they're down 2 sets.
So there is nothing worse than a reverse sweep. It's like, I've been there. Melissa, I'm sure you've been there in those situations. So there's nothing worse than that, and TCU is going to try to make sure that doesn't happen here today.
Over to Lazda. She didn't play that much in the second set. Back out there to start the third. Over to Glendenning, who emerged in the second set. Over to Glendenning once again. Third time's a charm, perhaps. Not to be. Glendenning missed the line.
Looks like there's some timing issues between setter hitter, Lazda, Leffler. I think Lazda wants that ball, especially when it's in system, to be a little bit quicker behind her. And her timing, she's coming down on the way. That one was a kill, but there's just looks like there's some timing issues.
Well, the 2 outsides right now for Cincinnati. Lazda on one side and then Glendenning on the other. You have one that didn't play for the first chunk of the year, another that hasn't played very much in the second half of the year. So just getting that timing right with Leffler, who's been more or less a constant, might be difficult. Well to cover there.
And I think that's what's keeping Cincinnati in some of these matches is now the lineup consistency, with the injuries at the beginning of the year and then the injury in the middle part of the year to Caitlin Leffler. They've been very fortunate now to be healthy, and I think this lineup consistency is helping them a little bit, and their flow seems much better as of late.
They're struggling with the TCU block. The 12th of the match, headlined by Gibson on that one. Line drive serve right to Whittakin. Up for Glendenning once more. Cross court denied by Para. And they go to her on the attack. Frame dug it. To the middle, Roberson. And a kill for Alexis Roberson, who spent 2 years at LSU. First year with TCU. Asta. And a block lands in. Nobody was there for Cincinnati. One of the rare instances the block didn't stay right around the hitter. It flew all the way to the back row. and caught a piece of the end line.
And that is a difficult ball to cover. It landed near the end line.
Glendenning, good pancake kept alive, but they call it hit the floor. Bramschreiber tried everything to get under that. Glendenning gets credit for the kill. Para. Roll shot to perfection.
Just so smart. Such a smart player. You know, that time you thought she was going to jump up and rip it. She saw that opening in the middle of Cincinnati's defense, and Julie Whittakin wasn't quite able to get underneath that ball to get it up.
We talk about that all the time, Stephanie. You know, you still want to see attackers swing on the balls that aren't out of system, and that was a pretty well-in-system ball for TCU, and Para throws in a shot that is usually reserved for an out-of-system ball. It's like she's playing reverse psychology.
That's what you have to do. I mean, you don't tip on the bad sets. Everybody's expecting that. And I think that's something that the Bearcat attackers need to learn, that if it's not a perfect set, you still need to swing away. I think the roll shot is kind of a dying art anymore. We don't see as many players utilizing the roll shot, but Melanie Para, she's doing it well.
Nolan throws it over. Kelly back in. Punch up from Gillespie, now to Nolan, and split the defenders in the back row. Sydney Nolan in double figures once again, the 16th time this year with 10 or more for Nolan.
Yeah, very nice job by Caitlin Leffler. You could see TCU's middle blocker cheat a little bit to the left because Abby Walker was running a slide behind Caitlin Leffler. Nice quick tempo ball out to Sydney Nolan for that kill.
Cincinnati gets a piece on Kelly's attack off of Volpe, the one-handed dig. Over Walker to Nolan, Volpe once more with the dig. Back row, Para. Sigmund pops back up after the denial. Big swing, bigger block. TCU keeps it alive. Once more for Kelly. Good defense all around here. Cincinnati out of sorts. Young the set, back row, Para. Another good dig, Gillespie. Nolan caps it off. What a point.
That was a long rally, and the power from Nolan on that swing. That was impressive.
And the defense of Cincinnati, the scrappiness of Cincinnati, you know, keeping them in that play, just keep sending balls back over to the other side, making TCU play and force them into that mistake.
That's a few freshmen in the back row playing defense on Para. Sigmund had a couple of digs, Gillespie as well. Kelly sent right back. Walker was there.
I know the coaching staffs, they keep track of these types of stats, but I think that the Bearcats actually are more successful in their two-hitter rotations. I think that they're scoring more points with Nolan and Walker up in the front row, which is not what you'd expect. You have one less hitter in the front row, but they are doing well in that two-hitter rotation.
Para not getting much going from that back row right now. Nolan once more, and they get another touch. So why would that be, Stephanie? Why would you be more successful in this rotation with only two hitters compared to three?
You have two very good attackers in their position up in the front row together. Abby Walker on the slide, which is you want to slide middle up with your setters, so that way they can run behind and really spread the offense out on the net. But Nolan and Walker, they're a good duo up there with Leffler.
Sometimes it's as simple as that, just having two players excelling in their position and in their role. That's out on a touch, though. Somebody at the net got a piece of it. Sigmund popped up and knew it was out right away, but didn't realize the touch in front of him. Now Para, another kill, her 13th. Nolan, right off of Gibson once again. Force feeding Sydney Nolan, and she's taking it all in.
We've been raving about Melanie Parra. However, Sydney Nolan, they're almost even in stats. They both have 13 kills. They both have very similar hitting percentages. Nolan hitting 314 over Parra's 256.
The difference right now between the two players is that's kept alive for Cincinnati. We'll get back to that in a minute. To the middle, Sylvester throws it off the block. The difference right now is Parra is a much more complete player than Nolan. Parra already has a double-double, 13 kills, 11 digs. And that's an area that Molly Alvey told us Nolan in the spring, they want her to work on being more that 6-rotation ball control player as well.
And that'll happen. That will definitely happen for Nolan. For her to be a 6-rotation player, I mean, you can see it. She has it. It just takes time, and she just needs those repetitions.
There's Parra sliding right, punching it back to the left. Nolan dug by Volpe. It's an out-of-system set for Parra. Nolan mistimed there, and Cincinnati runs out of contacts.
Yeah, how about Legia Williams? We talk about how she's not that effective offensively. That was a great combination there between Leffler and Legia Williams. She ran that quick tempo ball right behind the setter. TCU did a good job getting that ball back up.
What happened at the end here, Stephanie? Melissa, on the setter there?
I think it was, again, a miscommunication there. I think Sydney Nolan was trying to run a quick tempo ball inside of the net, and Leffler set it as an outside ball out to the pin. I'm not sure I did communicate there between setter hitter.
Well, that was a funky play there for Cincinnati. We'll see it again in a minute. They somehow get this point with two players being more or less out of the play. Gillespie and Leffler got all sorts of tangled up. Look at this. So they're still going to get this point, but they're playing 4-on-6. Sometimes the volleyball gods are just on your side.
Definitely were in that situation.
TCU by 1. Cincinnati tries to tie it up. Going to Lazda down the line. And missed her mark.
Yeah, good swing, trying to go down the line. Just drop that thumb, just hit it a little bit too wide and long, but good swing by Lazda. It's there, the line is open.
Graham Schreiber on the serve. Punch up by Nicholson. Over Williams to Nolan once more.
That's the move. That's the move. You said Nolan. She's playing very well.
And Leffler's doing a really good job of jump setting. And so TCU's block right now is a little off balance. When you jump set, even though she's back row, the blockers tend to stick with the setter, and then you get it out there quick to Nolan, and it sets up that huge seam in the block.
A tap from Nicholson to Sylvester.
And just like I said, setter's coming from the back row. Legia Williams went up with the setter even though she's back row. And TCU's middle had that open net for that kill.
That's Sylvester. Just saw Cincinnati tripping over themselves. Sylvester tripped over Becca Kelly. Williams. Nicholson screaming to call everybody off to set it for Parra. And Leffler couldn't handle that last ball right into the net.
That was a nice up by Cincinnati's back row, but it's really tough when you're a back row setter and you're playing so deep in the court that ball needs to be dug up a little bit off the net to allow the setter to get up there. And pass was just a little bit too tight.
Lazda kept it in on a touch. Fifth kill for Lazda, second for Cincinnati behind Nolan, who has 15. 28 assists for Leffler today. Just closing in on a double-double. Para already has one, pushed to the back. Mazda once more, right through the seam.
Great out-of-system ball by Molly Harrison. That was almost like set up there as if it was in system.
Yeah, those out-of-system balls, you're taught to keep it about 2 feet off the net, 2 feet in. Better that ball, allow your hitter to swing away.
Gibson, she's gone a little bit quiet as the match has gone along. Still a good showing today with 7. Push to the middle of the floor. TCU kept it alive for a minute. Couldn't get the second ball.
Smart play by Carly Glendenning, seeing that split in the block and that opening in the campfire in the donut, right in the middle of TCU's defense.
It's about the only shot she had. Set was a little bit high. Did well with it. Gibson off the shoulder of Harrison. Upset with herself, but a kill for Gibson.
Nice high line shot. Anthony, you were saying she was a little quiet. I was saying she was only hitting
ESPN
across
Plus.
court.
You love
ESPN
I love ESPN Plus. Coming out of the media timeout, going to Carly Glendenning for Cincinnati. Good to see Young stay in. I think she twisted an ankle or rolled it just a little bit, so good to see her in there after dealing with injury that caused her to just return over the last couple of weeks. Para slams it.
Lazda, she needed to take advantage of that overpass, put that ball away, because you know if it gets back on TCU side, Parr is going to do it.
Para taps it. Whittakin waits for it. Walker, punched up by Volpe. Frame digs it. Glendenning, right past the back row.
Better swing from Glendenning. There seems to be a little bit of a timing deal between her and Leffler. Looks like Glendenning's early on most of her swings. And as an outside, you're always told, go late, leave late, and go fast. So she's leaving a little too early, which means she's going from fast to slow, and you got to go from slow to fast.
Para's called on to set here for Gibson. Sigmund dug it, but frame ran out of room. You think these Cincinnati freshmen will learn a thing or two from staring down the end of the gun barrel of a Para attack, a Gibson attack, all those hard swings?
Absolutely. I mean, these are the types of players that you want to play against. Like, everybody who's on the TCU roster, they're playing against these high caliber players every day in practice. Only makes you better.
Young for Kelly. That's way long. No touch. That is only your second error today.
Yeah, again, we talked about in the past, Cincinnati's offense, they're starting to get a little apprehensive, starting to tip a little bit too much. They need to stay aggressive against this big block. Swing away, swing high, find a hole on the other side of the court.
Tough set for Kelly. Thought it got a piece of a Bearcat, and they do make that call. It's really tough set for Kelly, right near the antenna.
This is one where you do need to consult your line judges because the ball's tight. Obviously, Kelly's trying to use that block. It's just a matter of who touched it last.
Call Cincinnati's way. Reverse it. TCU's going to challenge. I mean, the right idea, Stephanie, right? For Kelly, I mean, a set like that, obviously a very tough placement. You just try to tool it off the block, right? You do whatever you can in that situation and keep it inside the antenna.
Right, and if attacker knows how to win that battle at the net, they are nearly successful in all of their attempts. It's getting that ball, pushing it into the block, and then wiping it off, because that means the block is going to touch it last.
So we've gone from Cincinnati touch to no touch. And again, did Kelly swipe it off the arms of Leffler, who immediately said no?
A little, she said.
Pointing fingers.
That's a tough angle. But of course, as a player, you're not going to admit that you touched it. You're going to say, no, I didn't touch it.
But now that the video replays are more used more now in the game, so the selling it doesn't help as much. But in a situation like this, it's really hard to tell.
Well, what complicates this call is it went from touch for TCU to a conference to then no touch. And obviously that comes into play because there needs to be clear and obvious evidence of a reversal. So if there's not, then the call usually is confirmed if there's not enough to overturn it. So Cincinnati right now kind of in the driver's seat because you almost need to prove more that there is a touch than there isn't a touch. If that makes sense. Call confirms. Not enough evidence to prove a touch, or they had an angle that proved there was not a touch. So Kelly on the tough set did all she could. TCU still in control, up a point. Second half of the third set. Kelly. Nice job by Frame once again. Over to Nolan. Good dive by Para. Kelly sets the feet and absolutely nails it cross court.
Hey, she's got a wicked cross court shot. Abby Walker's got to drop that left hand to cut that off.
I mean, I was going to say, too, all of TCU's attackers have that wicked, sharp cross court 4-4 hit. Because even Evan Hendricks, when she was in the game, she was hitting that same shot.
Nolan off the block. Young to Kelly again, set back. Cincinnati did better there. You called for it, Stephanie. Walker got a piece of that one.
Better adjustment. And that's just that speaks to Walker's just growth as a player. She realized what beat her last time. She took that away the second time around.
That is a Pro Volleyball Federation draft pick right there, making that adjustment. That's around the antenna. Kelly's had a couple of tough sets come her way the last few. Walker, one of 7 players in the Big 12 drafted into the Pro Volleyball Federation. Walker went to Columbus, up near her hometown of Cambridge, Ohio. Way off for Nolan. Back row, Para ripping it. I think for Para, too, we've talked about her intelligence. You know, the last one she tapped over. I think sometimes she just does shots to keep the other team out of system. You know, sometimes you're obviously going for a kill all the time, but sometimes just to keep the other team out of sorts to set yourself up for a better chance the next time around.
Right, that's exactly what you want to do, because you're not going to get a kill on every attempt. But if you're out of system, the key is to take your shot and then turn the opposing team into getting in an out-of-system situation.
It'll work there on the last try, and that works for Nolan.
It's so fun watching Sydney Nolan and where she has come in just these last couple matches. It seems like, you know, she's just learning and getting more and more confident. 16th kill of this game, and that ball was so tough because it came kind of over top of her and hit it inside that middle blocker of TCU. Volpe wasn't able to handle.
It's the biggest what if, Molly Alvey told us, if injuries and rotational scheming didn't plague the Bearcats, if Nolan could have been on that outside spot the whole season instead of sometimes being stuck to the middle and obviously playing on the right side at times.
Yeah, because this is kind of back to their original starting lineup when they had an exhibition match here at Fifth Third Arena versus Wright State. Lazda was healthy. Everybody was healthy, and this was their original starting lineup.
Pancaked by Frame. And it's off of Volpe. Nolan, another kill. Started with the defense from Frame.
Those two players are who Cincinnati is going to have to lean on going forward in the next couple of years. Faith Frame is just amazing as a freshman in her leadership in the back row, and Nolan really emerging as a leader in the front row.
Yeah, Lily Gillespie too. She's not, you don't see a lot of stats on the stat sheet for her except for digs, but that was a great set. She bettered that ball. She put it in the correct place to allow Sydney Nolan to swing away on that one.
There is a challenge from TCU's side. This must be on the pancake. Did it hit the floor or did it not hit the floor? As the swing looked clean. Looks like a clean pancake.
No one likes dirty pancakes.
I was just going to say, that's the best kind of pancake. Who wants a dirty pancake?
You can just tell by the way it came off her hand there. It popped straight up. There's a different bounce when you don't get your hand and arm underneath a pancake.
Where do you stand on the 5-second rule? Speaking of dirty pancakes.
Oh, I'll eat it.
The pancake value, you'd pick it up and eat it?
Yeah.
How about you, Melissa? 5-second rule or no?
Yeah, I would too. That was when I was a mom raising kids, say a pass by or something fell up, 5-second rule, pick it up.
What about 10-second rule? Some people go 10-second rule. You're really starting to make it difficult. That's a difficult serve for Julie Whittakin. Cincinnati, don't blink. Chance to extend this match up by a point. Another tough serve right over the top of the net. Para gliding in and ripped it long.
And a rare mistake from Para. So she is human.
Her fourth error in 53 swings. She has 17 kills, 12 digs. But no dice there, leads to a TCU timeout.
I keep thinking about your 10-second rule on a pancake. Like, if you're letting someone sit on the floor for 10 seconds, you're just slow.
A 3-0 scoring run to get Cincinnati from down a point to up 2 points. We were talking a couple of moments ago about the draft picks. PBC, Walker fell into that category. We saw Elise McGee on Wednesday for Baylor. She was drafted pick 1 of round 5. But those are the Big 12 selections, headlined by Toyosi Onabanjo for Kansas. We saw her earlier this year as well. We saw Mary Schroll for Arizona State. Obviously, if you're being selected in a professional volleyball league, you're a standout, right? But some really, really good names on this list. Couple of Jayhawks. Cameron Turner was drafted 3rd round. But Walker for Cincinnati getting the call.
I also think that could be something that high school athletes look at. It's when they're looking to pick their school. How many players have come out of that program playing after college? I mean, that essentially is the dream. If you love the game of volleyball, you want to continue to play as long as you can. And both of these programs do have players in that regard.
Well, for Cincinnati, you can just look right at the scores table right here. Coming out of the timeout, Gibson gets TCU within 1.
This set is looking eerily similar to the first set. Cincinnati was ahead in that 3-hitter rotation.
Glendenning Pops it right through the block.
Again, Cincinnati right now doing a much better job staying aggressive, taking away that tip, being aggressive with their attack, challenging TCU's block right now.
Gibson. Over to Glendenning once more. Tried a similar shot. Para sets the feet. Whittakin, excellent dive. Glendenning again. Job by Bramschreiber. Para tried to end it. She could not, thanks to Molly Harrison. Tapped over by Glendenning. Roberson does the same. Glendenning again. Bramschreiber is there again. Back set Gibson, way long. So now you mentioned, Stephanie, eerily similar to the first set. Now it's Cincinnati's job to hold on to this one.
And once again, we're in the situation where Molly Harrison is serving. She's doing a great job, got a great dig in that rally. Just trying to change the result here in the third set.
This team is very, very scrappy. They're not going away down the stretch of this season and trying to play some spoiler today against TCU. Horned Frogs still in front, 2-1. Don't go away just yet. With a 25-21 third set victory here in Cincinnati. Well, that is the brief version of the summary. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of it with Para a double-double. Nolan matching her with 17 kills today. Gibson a double-double as well for TCU. That is her 12th of the year. A lot of star power for this TCU team. So what did it take to get Cincinnati back in this match?
I think Nolan really emerged there in the third set. Her swings are just so much stronger. They're difficult to defend. And TCU is having a hard time.
And I think TCU, if they do have a weakness, their ball control, they struggled a little bit there in that third set, and then their setting consistency. You saw that last play of that third set, with the setter, which she shot it by Para. I think if you are looking for a weakness for them, it may be a little bit of their ball control, their serve receive, and some setting consistency.
Well, on senior day, we want to make sure we continue to highlight the Cincinnati seniors. We showed this earlier, but just as a reminder, Abby Walker, Molly Harrison, Irbe Lazda, Caitlin Leffler, Julie Whittakin, all with some different connections to the program, different contributions to the program, but a 5-player senior class that will be honored post-match today, and you can stick around for that celebration once the match ends, whether it's in this fourth set with a TCU victory or a fifth set when it will be all up for grabs for either team. Cincinnati will have to force it to a fifth.
There's no game that I think the seniors won more than this one. Their last match in Fifth Third Arena against a top 25 team. Nothing would be sweeter to end your collegiate season with a win like that.
And nothing would be more sour for TCU, a team that, based on some projections, a chance to still host in the NCAA tournament. And that was the main concern for Jason Williams today. This is a Cincinnati team that could ruin the Horned Frogs' chances to host in the tournament if things go awry today. Starts off well for the Bearcats. Williams, who's not often used offensively, chipping in there.
Yeah, Williams. They need to keep Abby Walker, Legia Williams engaged. They have set Sydney Nolan 46 times. TCU knows the ball is going to go out there to her, but if you keep your middles engaged a little bit, that's going to make TCU's middle blocker stay with them, and it'll open up the net for Sydney Nolan.
It's an impressive set for Nicholson, down on 2 knees. Didn't work out for the Horned Frogs. That set works for Sylvester.
Yeah, most teams, when you're running stuff out of the middle, there's always going to be somewhere. You always have a weakness. You always have an opening somewhere. When a lot of balls are set in the middle, that opening is going to be right behind the middle blocker toward the 3-meter line.
Ball died midair. Good serve from Jalen Clark, and it leads to a point for TCU.
That was a great serve. I honestly thought, watching that cross, and I thought that was going to be a guaranteed ace, but Whittakin really flew under that.
And it looked like it just hit a wall. Like the minute it came over the net, it just fell. Very impressive for Jalen Clark. She'll try to do the exact same thing. And Frame sets it up for Walker.
That's why Abby Walker is so valuable. She's up in the two-hitter rotation because she's so good on the slide, but just proving her value. She can also hit in front.
Roberson, she tried to bump set it and kind of collided with Nicholson. Miscommunication leads to the Glendenning kill.
A really nice swing by Glendenning there. That ball was dying a little bit inside. She hit that zone 4, ripped it for that kill.
It was just disaster from the beginning once Roberson went for that ball. Nice job by Nicholson just to get that to Gibson. Tapped over by Glendenning. A little late there for the Horned Frogs.
That was probably Glendenning's best deceptive tip. Usually she'll show it a little early. That last one, she went up, looked like she was going to attack, and at the last minute, opened her hand for the open hand tip.
Gibson. Glendenning. Nice job, Hendricks. Para, the tap. Glendenning, good cover. And Para sends it right back.
Yeah, pass. Nice job by Glendenning getting there to get that tip, but passed just a little bit too tight for Caitlin Leffler. And Para was up there right with Caitlin Leffler.
Para's so unforgiving, isn't she? She does not let you get away with a missed touch, an overpass, anything like that. Whittakin went into the dive just in case she needed to, but good eyes to let it go out.
We're seeing a lot of good things from Cincinnati. They had a lull in the middle of the season, which hurt their record overall, but they are playing better at the time that you need to be playing better.
Nolan, another kill as she inches closer to what could be another 20-kill day. If this match goes to 5, she could be on pace for a new career high. Now, you always talk about clicking at the end of the season. Going into the postseason, you want to be playing your best at the end of the year for that reason. Cincinnati won't be going to a postseason this year, but all the right indications of clicking and peaking at the right time are there for Cincinnati, as they've opened up a 4-point advantage in set 4. Para got tucked under the net there after that as well. Good to see her get up as she got tangled up with, I think, Caitlin Leffler.
She hits right-handed, she hits left-handed, she scores. Great pass by Frame.
Hendricks blocked.
Very nice job by Cincinnati's block. Stephanie Young is the setter in the game for TCU right now. She is front row, so Nolan moved to her right to allow her middle blocker to cheat to the outside for that block. Nice block by Cincinnati.
A tough pass by Gibson, a rare miscue there. An ace for Walker. Cincinnati doing very well in the second half of this match, trying to force a 5th set. Yesterday being Thanksgiving, a lot of players from around the country, around the world. Cincinnati does carry a lot of local players, but for those that could not make it home, one of their middle blockers, Zeta Washington, cooked and hosted the Thanksgiving meal. Wonder what was on the menu. but they look happy, so it must have been good.
Yeah, Zeta does a lot. She can cook. She has made shoes and painted shoes for all the staff and players.
It was an all-rookie team selection in the Big 12 last year as well. A good volleyball player.
Wow. That ball shouldn't have landed, but at TCU, everybody's looking up at the ceiling, and that ball just fell.
Someone's going to call it, right? You would think.
Well, UC was scrambling. I think TCU might have thought they were going to pull that one out, but that's going to be a momentum driver.
Hendricks tries to get the momentum back on TCU's side.
And that's what keeps Cincinnati in these matches. They are so gritty. Their defense does such a good job, obviously, led by Faith Frame, but Julie Whittakin, Lily Gillespie, they do a great job defensively back there for the Bearcats.
Yeah, 3 players for Cincinnati, 10 or more digs today. Nolan back to work, her 19th of the afternoon. Nolan, one of the locals we were just talking about from Florence, Kentucky, only about 25 minutes south of Cincinnati. Looks like she had a good meal yesterday, jumping around today, closing in on a new career high. Off the block and out for Hendricks. Starting to go to the freshman a bit more late in this match. Actually, never got a piece of a block there, right off the antenna, and bounced in. There's Gillespie. Reach over by Williams. Hendricks off the antenna once again. Frame got a hand to it. Nolan. There's Para. Para got the receive and gets the kill.
When a team is struggling, you always look to your leader, and that is definitely Melanie Para for TCU.
Nolan blocked and down. A stop for Gibson and Sylvester once again. If Sylvester's in the area, it's going to be tough to get it by Sarah Sylvester. That is out for the Horned Frogs. By the way, that block assist there for Sylvester sets a new season high for the junior. Sylvester, for those unaware with the story, last year was an emergency signee for the basketball team as well. The Horned Frogs under Mark Campbell were so littered with injury, they held open tryouts, and Sylvester, who has a basketball background as well, she had a handful of mid-major Division I offers, actually joined the team, scored some points, played some meaningful minutes down the stretch for TCU women's basketball.
There was a point during my time at UC where the men's basketball team, they were recruiting football players to serve on their roster.
Really?
Yes.
Glendenning. Para. Wow. Some smoke behind that.
A lot of smoke behind that. Frame saw it. Frame knew exactly where it was going, and she was there. There was just a lot of heat.
Frame is very impressive for a freshman. She does such a great job of getting in the right position when you're. She does such a good job maneuvering herself to get around that blocker so she can see her hitter on the other side.
Short-armed by Williams into the net. Would that have been a dream for you, Stephanie, being an emergency call onto the basketball team if they needed it?
Absolutely not. Like, I played
You
basketball.
played basketball in high school.
I did, but physical contact sports, not for me. Like to shoot a lot, don't want to be bumped into, but just like to shoot the ball.
Timeout, Cincinnati letting TCU get back within a point. Sarah Sylvester, one heck of a match today. Again, not the big offensive option like a Melanie Para, but she gets her points in the block department.
Yeah, we've that. Having a breakout blocking match for TCU, keeping them in these long rallies.
And she has not gotten set very much, only 7 times, but she has 5 kills, hitting 571 this afternoon.
Of TCU's 15 blocks, Sylvester is involved in 10 of them. The TCU block total is also a season high. Now, she's not uncommon. I mean, it's certainly impressive, but it's not uncommon to have a dual sport athlete. I actually had a Florida Gulf Coast women's basketball game. I think I texted you guys about this. Chelsea Lyles, who's now the coach for FGCU, she spent 2 years with the FGCU volleyball, the basketball program. Had an extra year, decided to use it for volleyball. As a middle, led the team in kills, hitting percentage, and blocks. And now she's the head coach for the basketball team again. So it's not uncommon. That's very impressive.
It's not uncommon, but you do see a lot of youth athletes specializing in a lot of sports, but it is so valuable to have an athlete that plays multiple sports. It just makes them a well-rounded player. I also think it helps prevent injuries, just using different muscles for different sports. So the more you can get involved in different activities and different sports, the better.
Yeah, I just cringe when I talk to other parents, and especially when their kids are still, say, middle school, and they're specializing in a sport, whether it's soccer or baseball. I just cringe because those kids are so young. It's so beneficial just to play, multiple sports. Those overuse injuries is, what harps some of these young athletes.
To play multiple is one thing. To excel in both is another. Sylvester certainly falls into that category. Got her hands on that as well. Just so impressive is that net front presence. Para denied. Sylvester there. And another point for Sarah Sylvester.
Again, really smart by Sylvester. Cincinnati did a good job hitting a touch on that block, but she's in the right place at the right time, found that hole in Cincinnati's defense.
Glendenning blocked again. I think that was mostly Gibson, but Sylvester helped seal it.
Again, timing a little bit, I think, like Stephanie said. I think she's a little bit early. She's coming down instead of hitting it at her peak. So, again, that communication between hitter-setter.
A 5-0 run for the Horned Frogs. Glendenning, a push. Hendricks filled the spot. Para, other side. That's out. TCU a 6-0 run. Cincinnati had this fourth set in their grasp early, and the Horned Frogs have rallied, going from down 4 to now up 2. Back set, Lazda, the tap. Pancaked by Volpe, and it works. Kill for Lazda on the crafty shot.
I really like TCU's demeanor on the floor. They don't play too high. They don't play too low. They take on Coach Williams. When we talk to him pregame, he's real calm, cool, collected. But I think your team takes on the personality of your coach. And they were down 4, but it didn't let them affect him.
Tapped by Para. A couple of tap shots resulting in kills. Para, another 20-kill match today. That was number 22. On 63 attempts. Season high is 92. She did that against Minnesota earlier this year. Walker, push, and hooked it out. Didn't have much room near that line for Walker. Lazda, big swing here, and off the block and out.
Hey, Cincinnati has to stay aggressive if they want to win this set. TCU's got a strong block, but that's no reason to go away from your swing and try to tip. The more aggressive they stay, I think the better chances they have.
The lefty Sigmund serving, picking on Carter. I beg your pardon, on Hendricks. Leffler dumps it down.
I think Stephanie and I keep looking at each other, and those overpasses, we would love to see an attacker up there on an overpass just swing away.
Gibson. What a dig from Whittakin. Up for Glendenning now. There's Hendricks. Para right through the chute.
So smart as a defensive player. You know, the offensive player has tendencies, but Melanie Para does such a good job. She just has so many different shots that as a defensive player, you just don't know where to go, where to stand when she's going up to attack the ball.
A little too close for comfort there for Cincinnati. They decided to let it fall, and it was in. An ace for Gibson as TCU's 7th of the day. Glendenning just fell right in front of the net through the blocking down.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati's outside hitters right now with center front row is Stephanie Young. She's a little bit smaller than that big block of Gibson, so that Leffler needs to get that ball all the way out to the antenna to allow Cincinnati's attack to go line over that setter.
Nolan back in now for Cincinnati, their big arm. Frame, an excellent dig. Leffler dumped it. So Stephanie, you were calling for that earlier, and now it seems like Leffler's starting to take matters into her own hands a bit.
Say that right, and that dig was very tight to that. That was her only option. However, she took that one with a little bit more force, made it difficult for TCU to get hands on it.
Good serve. Overpass. Cincinnati in system to Nolan. Her 20th, so the third match in the last 4 that Nolan has gotten to at least 20.
This is where Cincinnati wants to be. If they had to choose a rotation to be in, it's with Carly Nolan, or I'm sorry, Sydney Nolan in the front row in zone 4.
Another good serve. TCU staying out of system. Another free ball. Chance for the lead for Nolan. Good dig from Hendricks, but out. And Stephanie, you've mentioned it, this two-hitter front, not often viewed as an advantage, but it works for Cincinnati. Timeout Horned Frogs.
Well, it's their two best offensive players, Abby Walker and Sydney Nolan. So you can send Abby Walker. She can hit any ball along the net, but her best attack is the slide behind her. So if she runs that slide as a middle blocker for TCU, you have to honor that slide behind, and then that'll open up the net a little bit for Sydney Nolan.
Oh, we've been keeping tabs on Para and Nolan all day long. For Melanie Para, 23 kills today, 13 digs, and just the creativity that you've talked about, Stephanie. A little bit of everything in her bag.
So she's got it all. Very stoic player. She does, like Melissa said, their whole roster, they don't get too high, too low. The dangerous type of player to have on your team.
And Nolan for Cincinnati, 21 kills today, 3 digs, and just the maturation of a player that has really embraced her role on the outside, Melissa.
Yeah, she really has. And right now, Sydney Nolan is being so aggressive that she doesn't have as many tools in the bag, as we say, as Melanie Para. But as a sophomore, very bright future, she's just going up there and hammering the ball, hammering through the block, cross court, line, being very aggressive today.
Para, her 14th double-double of the year. 23 kills, 13 digs. Nolan, 21 kills, hitting .327. So pretty much neck and neck in terms of accolades. Well, not accolades, but stats today. Para more digs, Nolan hitting at a better clip. Para also has 3 aces. There is Para. The receive, and she'll rise up and hit it long.
Other thing I like about Para as I just watch her demeanor on the court. That set, it wasn't the best connection, but she takes ownership for it. She puts that on herself.
And she'll go attack it even if it's not the best set as well. Back row, Gibson. Got a touch.
So nice to have these pin hitters for TCU. They're not only extremely efficient in the front row, but to be able to set them in the back row to be just as efficient.
It's interesting again for Para, lethal. Roberson taps it over. And what I mean by that is obviously TCU may be the most back row heavy I think we've seen this year. And then you go back to Arizona State when they would set their setter with Argentina Ung. It's just interesting to see how each team goes about their offense. A challenge likely coming here for Cincinnati.
I know Cincinnati has been frustrated with a couple of near over passes where they think that a TCU player is going too far over the net. They're reaching over to get it before it has a chance to get over. But that's not a challengeable call, so I think at this point it's going to be a net call at attacking that overpass.
It was Roberson who was the one that put a stamp on it. Now definitely away from the net. Call confirmed, TCU. The point from Roberson.
So we talked about the rotation Cincinnati wanted to be in, but TCU, if they had to choose any server to have on the line right now, I think it would be Melanie Para.
They're so tricky with that serve, you never know what's coming. Gives TCU the lead.
And you can't cheat on her because she served back-to-back short serves. You can't scoot your entire serve receive up because she will burn you going long.
Cincinnati uses its final timeout of this fourth set. Now TCU, this tournament resume that they have might be a little different if Cincinnati can come back and win this match today, but as they stand right now, number 22 rankings-wise, but more importantly for the Horned Frogs, number 15 RPI. So their postseason fate is not in question. It's a matter of whether they'll be playing in Fort Worth or elsewhere. They'll try to advance to the second round or more for the third consecutive season once they get there.
It's a different kind of pressure. A lot of teams are trying to just make the tournament.
Yeah.
Just make the tournament, period. But now they know they're in. But to have that home court advantage can be huge in the NCAA tournament.
I'm sure you'd rather deal with that pressure than trying to get in.
And like most teams, you're more comfortable at home. You play better at home. They had a really home-heavy schedule. And, so there's nothing like playing in your home arena in front of your home fans.
Now TCU will try to join these teams. They likely will join these teams. It's a matter of where and when. Arizona State has the automatic berth for the Big 12. Wichita State out of the AAC, a team Cincinnati's familiar with. They played Chicago State and Morehead State on the right-hand side as well earlier this year. TCU trying to wrap this one up in 4 sets with Para at the line. Big time serve. Keeps Cincinnati out of sorts. And down the line for Hendricks.
And I saw that ball come off the setter's hand, Stephanie Young. I thought, oh, that ball's too tight. And wow, Cincinnati's block took the cross-court angle away, and Evan Hendricks hammered that ball line.
7th for Hendricks. Para's maybe serving her best down the stretch here. She'll tap it now, and she's putting TCU on her back. Big serves, and then gentle taps. They all work the same.
I mean, she is incredible. You can see her vision on the court. She's up getting ready to hit that ball. She's looking on the other side to see where that hole was and found it in zone 4.
Another big serve, and it's an ace, and it's match point.
Melanie Parra is not messing around. She wants her team to be able to host that first and second round, and she is really.
I mean, just an absolute fantastic player with one heck of a serve, Stephanie.
Right. And I love the way she reacts to it afterwards. Just like arms out, like, well, I mean, what do you expect? Of course.
Well, the season has come to an end for Cincinnati. They'll finish 14-15, 5-13 in conference play. But they had a nice run at the end of the season, playing with some teams that I think a lot of people in the Big 12 wouldn't have expected them to play with